Hi, I'm Vanessa, and in today's video it's all about getting rid of stains and blooms on watercolor paintings. I prepared two exercises for you. The first one is we start with a simple flat wash as a warm-up, and then we continue with this fruity postcard to also learn more about abstract shapes of a flat wash. And I included timestamps in this video, so if you're just interested in one of these exercises, feel free to skip and also move forward and backward if you want to re-listen to an explanation, because we go through this step by step. And before we start painting, I would like to share 3 tips with you that you get the best results, because there are some common mistakes that I all did in the beginning. So let's start with tip number 1. Use watercolor paper, because this paper is especially made for watercolor painting and it can hold water the best way. And if you're just beginning with watercolor, I would recommend you to use a cold pressed paper, because they have more time until the paint is dried. Hot pressed paper can be a little bit more tricky, so start with cold pressed paper. And if you work with single sheets of watercolor, tape them down, but not on your table, because tilting and shifting can really help you, and also turning the paper, especially with a flat wash. Tape them down on a cardboard or on a wooden panel. This will help you a lot. And tip number 2 is mix enough paint, because it's super sad. If you run out of paint, you already have a nice flat wash, then you start mixing your color. Maybe you don't get the right color, or then you start continue painting and some areas are already dry or damp and you get stains or blooms. And that's not what we want. And the other thing is about paint. So if you have some paint left over, it's totally fine, because watercolor can always be reactivated with water, and so nothing is wasted. You can always reuse your paint for some other pictures you want to move on. And tip number 3 is use a suitable paintbrush. So you should use a watercolor brush which really can hold the water, that you can really load it. I would recommend use synthetic ones, because they're properly engineered these days, they're cruelty-free, and they're also easy to care for. And they're cheaper, especially in the beginning. And what I also mean is use a big brush for big areas, because if you use a tiny brush, some areas also might become already damp or dried before you reach them. So use a big brush for big areas. Okay, enough talking, let's start painting. So we start by loading the whole brush with paint, so that you can use the brush in every angle and not only the tip of the brush. I used permanent carmine, but you can choose any other color you like. And when you bring your paint to paper, you can see this little shine. This indicates that the area is optimal to work on because it's wet. And as well, you see this little bead at the bottom of the painted area, and this bead is your best friend for creating a smooth flat wash. You simply follow this bead and push it from left to right down the paper. And by tilting your paper, gravity helps you to bring all your water to the edge, keeping the bead. And you can also always see me refilling my brush and bringing more paint to this little bead, that it doesn't dry out, and so I move my way down to the bottom of the paper until I have completed the wash. And this exercise can also help you to gain water control, because if you use too much water, you will get some drips, but you will find the balance over time. And another tip is never go back to the top, as this area is mostly not wet anymore, and just damp or even dry. And you can see this by missing this little shine I showed you in the beginning of this exercise. And if I would go there with a full loaded brush, I would put the pigments to the outside because of the water and create a stain. And if you realize that you missed out a part or your color is too light, wait until the whole wash has dried and apply a second layer with the same method. And here you see, we're already done with a flat wash. I dry my brush and sip up the rest of the paint, and we are done with our flat wash. Let's tackle the abstract wash now. You can see that I mixed some lemon yellow into my permanent carmine to get a more orangey color for my background. And you can see me already turning my paper a lot because I searched for the smallest area to paint, which is in this corner here. And now I fill already like the fruit flesh of the melon in here. I leave a little bit white spot. And now I follow the bead, so you see this little puddle down to the edge until I reach there. And I also always soak up the leftover water because I don't want to get it into the paint again and maybe stain. And now you see me turning again, refill my brush. And now we have to be really careful because it's a quite big area. And now it's really the challenge to always keep this bead wet. And you can also see this shine. I think you will see it when I turn it in a minute again. And when you see this shine, you can still work in this area. And when you keep the bead wet, you can always go into the bead and drag it. And then you can fill the whole abstract shape here. You can always see bead is still active, but you also have to be careful. You have seen I returned it so that the water does not float into the painted area because otherwise it would stain again. And here you can see the shine. And now I stop talking for a moment that you can see how I fill this area. As you see, we have a super smooth flat wash as a background, and as this one is dried, I apply a second layer with the same color as before to give some fruit flesh to our melons. Also, our flesh of the melon is super smooth now, and now let's go to the peel. For this I mixed some turquoise into the lemon yellow and apply my paint on all the shapes of the peel here. So you can also exercise your flat wash in these small abstract shapes here. drying, we can apply a second layer of the peel. So I add here some stripes to the peel, and I made our green a little bit darker by adding a little bit more of the turquoise. And after adding the stripes to this peel, there is just one more step missing. Who finds the missing part? Of course, the seeds. And for the seeds, I just quickly dip the tip of my brush onto the melon, and then we already have the shape of a seed. And for this, I used a sepia brown, but you can also use a gray, for example, or a really, really dark blue or something if you don't have a brown. And here we go. We have our melon postcard, and we have exercised the abstract flat wash. I hope you liked the video. If you want to paint on, I have some other videos on this channel, for example, the negative painting technique, or if you need some more time for painting, I also can offer you a video about procrastination. See you in the next video. Bye bye!